y'all. Welcome to Criminally Creative, a podcast about my various creative endeavors. Today is Saturday, February 13th, 2021, and this is episode 20. It has been about 4 months since I've podcasted, so if you have come back to watch this after my hiatus, I appreciate it. If you're a first-time viewer, I appreciate that as well. This is probably going to be a very long one, so grab something to drink, grab some knitting or some cross stitch or whatever you do, and hang on. Feel free to break it up into increments and watch it over a period of days. I'm not sure how long yet it's going to be, and I actually debated about breaking it up, but I just decided to do it all in one fell swoop. So anyway, like I said, it has been about 4 months since I have podcast, and I'm going to do things a little bit differently today in the sense that I am going to pretty much show you about everything that I have in progress at the moment as kind of a starting point, because I'm working a little bit differently these days about how I craft. So anyway, before we get into that, a little bit of hearsay. I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday. Small and different though they may have been, I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy and hanging out as we are still in this pandemic across the world. My work is starting to pick up lately. We have gone back into what we refer to as long session in odd number years. So I am back in the office most days. I'm still working from home about once a week as my schedule allows, but for the most part, I am back in the office as normal, and my hours are getting a little longer, so that means, unfortunately, that my crafting time is getting shorter. I've also been in kind of a weird mood about crafting lately as far as not doing as much as I would think given the time that I have, but I'm still working on it. So couple of things. I went heavily back down the cross stitch rabbit hole in around October of last year, probably shortly after I podcast last. Cross stitch was my main craft when I was growing up, until probably my early to mid 20s or so, when I just kind of stopped crafting mostly altogether. And I had dabbled in a little bit since then. Back in about 2016, I started back into it again. That lasted about 3 or 4 months, and then I kind of dropped off again. But I picked it back up again this past October, and it seems to be sticking for now. So there will be a lot more cross stitch. There'll still be a lot of knitting. There will still be some spinning and weaving and some of my other crafts, but there will definitely be a lot more cross stitch going forward than there has been in the past. Also, I have just started taking a quilting class. And I've had one class so far, so I have nothing to show you from it. So far, just a bunch of cut up fabric. And I don't expect to become a big quilter. I'm taking the class mainly to improve my sewing skills, learn how to do quilting right, because I kind of know how to do it, but I've always just kind of winged it. And I have a couple of small kits for like little, hangings I can use in my office for the seasons and stuff that I'd like to do. But I just wanted to learn better how to do it properly. So, excuse me. So you will see a little bit of quilting probably from here on out too. But anyway, so let's get started. I'm going to show you a couple of verdicts. This is not everything that I have finished since last time, and a couple of things as we go along I'm going to have to put pictures in because I don't have the finished objects anymore, or don't have them here with me. But I did want to show you a couple things that I just thought you might enjoy, and at least one thing that you had seen before. So the project that you had seen in progress before was my blanket that I was doing as part of the Skeppies, how do you pronounce that word, Crochet Along 2020. It was a pattern by Christina Hattering, and it was based on the novel All the Light We Cannot See, and the Histoire Naturelle Museum in Paris, I think. Anyway, so the name of the pattern is De Histoire Naturelle, and I never took French, so I'm sorry for butchering that. Y'all saw a little bit of this in progress in October, but it is finished now. I'm going to try to back up a little bit so I can show you a better picture of most of it, to give you the full effect. There's the corners. corners there. I will also put a picture up here of like the whole thing laying on the floor, which is not the greatest picture, but at least will give you a full overview. This was definitely the most complicated crochet project I have ever done. But I really enjoyed it. The great thing about these crochet alongs is Esther from, I think it's In a Nutshell. I didn't write that down. I think she has a YouTube channel that I think is In a Nutshell. It's something Nutshell. Anyway, she did a step-by-step video tutorial of every single part of that blanket, which is the only way I was able to understand what I was supposed to be doing half the time. Not because the pattern was not clearly written, but just because I am inexperienced at anything other than single, double, triple, treble crochet, and this had a lot of unique, not stitches, because it was still single, double, treble type thing, but where the hook went, and knitting, not knitting, crocheting behind parts and in front of parts and down rows and just all over the place. But it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And I think I will probably be doing some more crochet blankets like this in my future. There's a couple other previous crochet alongs and other blankets that Esther has also done videos for, and there's a couple other designers that have put out really intricate but interesting blankets that they have kind of step by step tutorials for. So I will probably do at least another one of those at some point in the future. The other verdict that I have with me is, and I thought I had showed y'all this before, but I realized I'd started it after my last podcast. Although I think the Mystery Knit Along had started, I just not had started the project. I did the Stephen West Slip Stravaganza project in the fall, and this has not been blocked. You'll see ends hanging off, which are woven in, but I don't trim my ends until after I have blocked a project. But this was a very large shawl, and you know, it's a crescent, great big one of those, what I think of as a phoenix crescent. It always has the wings like a phoenix. But anyway, I did this. The yarns I used in this were, the navy is Knitted Wit, which is her bantamweight Corriedale in Prussian blue. This is actually a yarn I got, I think, in a Rami Hill lace kit. One of the years I did her lace patterns, but I ended up not making the shawl that was that particular pattern. And then trying to find the best places for you to see the colors, because I didn't get the scraps out. The lightest yellow is Sundara yarn fingering merino in buttercream. The yellow model is Suburban Stitcher sock in teal tulips, which was, I think, a colorway she did for Actually Knitting podcast, who is no longer podcasting. And then the more greeny blue is Suburban Stitcher River's Edge. So whenever we get a warm day, or I find a space in my house where the cat can't get to block that, it will get blocked. Same with the blanket I showed you. I have not washed that yet either. The other one that I happen to have with me is the Adventure Gnome. I did this. This was an Advent knit along. The pattern is by Sarah Shira. She's the one, she's not the only one that designs gnome patterns, but she has done a lot of gnome patterns and done a lot of little gnome knit alongs. And I have bought all the patterns, but this is the first one I've actually made. So this is a cute little gnome. I think his name was Nutmeg. And I did that as I just used scrap yarn from my scrap bin, so I couldn't really tell you what's what. I think the blue is a Suburban Stitch or something, but I'm not sure. So anyway, finished that. And then the other two verdicts I was going to talk about, I have to put pictures in of. One is, you know, I do the Franklin Habit Dolores doll, and I do various outfits, and they issued back in the fall a pattern for Notorious RBG. And it was like a black judge's robe with 3 different collars. So of course I had to make that immediately as soon as the kit arrived. But Dolores is in my office and she's currently wearing the outfit. So I will put a picture of that in here. That was made with Valley Yarns Superwash Sport. Just a note for that, if you do buy that kit, I did run out of the black yarn. Because I have bought all the Dolores kits, I happen to have another skein of the black in the Valley Yarns Sport Superwash and was able to get the little bit I needed from that skein, which is for another kit that I haven't actually done yet. So hopefully I won't run out on that kit. But just be aware, as far as my gauge was pretty much spot on. So I don't know if my skein was just a little short because I didn't weigh it before I started. That is the first time I have run out of yarn on one of the Dolores kits. Almost always I have yarn, plenty of yarn left over. So I don't know if it was just a short skein or what, but be aware of that possibility if you order that kit. And then the last verdict that I wanted to show you is actually a cross-stitch verdict, and it's actually 3 little pieces. I cross-stitched for a very good friend of ours who loves flamingos, some flamingo ornaments for her Christmas tree, and I will put a picture of those in. The cross-stitch pattern for those is by Hands On Design, and there were 3 of them. It was Falamingo, Flamingo Bell, and Flamingo All the Way. So they were cute little parodies on some Christmas carols with flamingos. I did those on 32 count Belfast and Antique White with the DMC conversion that is on the pattern for that. So that is all the verdicts. I'm actually going to pause the video and come back in just a minute because I've got to do some rearranging so I can show you all the next stuff. Okay, so I decided, like I said, I'm crafting a little bit differently these days in the sense of what I'm working on and when and that sort of thing. I've been in a real blanket mode lately as far as knitting, so I haven't done a lot of knitting other than a pair of socks that isn't on a blanket. But I do have other projects in the works, and I decided this year that this year was not going to be a goal year. In other words, I did not set any yearly goals. I'm not doing a pair of socks every month. I'm not going to do X number of sweaters or spend X number of, bats fiber or whatever. Excuse me. It's more of a, for the most part, work on things as I feel like working on them type year. But that being said, I am doing a couple of things to make sure that some things get worked on. And I am kind of setting a weekly goal, like sitting down. I do my planning on Sundays. I sit down every Sunday and I plan my week out as far as what do I need to get done, not just with crafting, but, around the house and with work and what appointments do I have and what errands do I need to run and that sort of thing. So as part of that, on Sundays, I'm sitting down and deciding what projects I think I want to work on for that week. And if I have projects that I am trying to get finished by a certain time, I usually put kind of not a hard and fast goal, but, a goal I'd like to achieve as far as a certain amount of progress on that project. The other thing that I'm doing is something called WIP Go. And if you're a cross stitcher, you may be familiar with WIP Go. If you're just a knitter, you probably aren't. But WIP Go is something that was created by Jessie Marie of Jessie Marie Does Stuff, which is another podcast on YouTube. And it's kind of like a bingo board that you create yourself with your projects. And she calls 2 numbers every month. And those are not the projects you have to work on every month. Different people do it differently. Some people put yearly goals on their bingo board. So they may have 24 projects. There's 25 squares, but the center's a free space. They may have 24 different projects on their WIP Go board with their goal for the year on it. And it's just that you can't mark it off completely until that number's been called. So you can work on it at any time. I have actually set mine as very modest monthly goals so that for the most part, most of my projects, because I actually have 2 WIP Go boards. I have one for cross stitch and I have one for my scrap blanket projects. You may remember last year I had kind of a scrap blanket rotation where every week I worked on a different scrap blanket. This year I'm doing it by WIP Go. Excuse me. So when that square is called, for the most part, for the blankets, definitely, for most of the cross stitch ones, that's the goal I want to do that month. I'd like, so for example, some of my cross stitches are 500 stitches in the block, or it may say 4 days, which is 4 times at least 30 minutes from 4 different days, or 5% or something like that, depending on the project and how it's best measured. And for me, for the most part, that means I want to achieve that goal in that month. I do have 2 finishes on my cross stitch ones for 2 smallish projects that can be finished this year. So those won't get actually marked off until that number's been called and I finish the project. Anyway, so if you want to know more about WIP Go, it's on Facebook. There's a Facebook group called WIP Go 2021. And also Jessie Marie on her YouTube channel, Jessie Marie Does Stuff, has a video that explains all that. Go check all that out, and I won't bother you with any more details. But anyway, so like I said, I'm not doing any yearly goals this year. I'm just kind of working on things either as they pop up on WIP Go or as I feel like it. So I thought what I would do is I would show you pretty much everything I have in progress, both knitting and cross stitch. I do have a weaving project on the loom and a spinning project on the wheel, but I'm not going to show you those until I can finish those. But the knitting and a little bit of crochet and the cross stitch, I'm going to show you pretty much everything, which is why this video may end up being very, very long. So I thought I would start with all of my blankets, and most of my blankets are scrap blankets except for one, and that is the 2020 temperature blanket that I started last year that I have not finished because about September I just kind of lost momentum on it and got distracted by other things, cross stitch in October, and got really behind on it. So I'm about to finish up the October, and I still have November and December to do. So, and this actually has, besides a pair of socks, has been most of my knitting lately, other than the little bits I've done on the other blankets that have come up on WIP Go, because I do want to get this done. And it's going to be hard to show you the whole, oh, I thought for a second I was in the middle of a row, which I'm not, but. So, where I am right here is almost the end of October. You can see that I do an eyelet row on the last day of each month to kind of mark the end of the month. And I am doing this in Cascade 220, all in different shades of blue. And the various blues are, I should actually, let me back up a second and tell you that I am not going to go into as much detail on each of these knitting projects as I usually do because I'm going to be talking about so many different things. All of the information about my knitting projects as far as what size needle I'm using, what yarn it is, what the colorways are, all of that stuff is on Ravelry, on my Ravelry pages. And I may not have even said at the beginning, you can find me on Ravelry as Legal Eagle and on Instagram as Criminally Creative Podcast. So if you want to know more details about these, the knitting projects, they are all on Ravelry. If you are not on Ravelry or Ravelry is a problem for you, feel free to leave me a comment below and I will be happy to reply to it and provide you whatever information you have about a project. So this is my 2020 temperature blanket, which is now much longer than I am tall. I am not quite 5'1", and I would say this is already about 6 foot long. So it's probably going to be at least 7 foot by the time I'm done with the next 2 months. But that's fine. It's just intended to be something to cuddle up on the couch with. It's not wide enough to be a blanket for the bed, but you can see I did a variety of blues. And these, the high temperature for each day is what determines what color, what shade of blue I used for that. When I get that finished, I'll do a much better job of showing you the final thing and what it looks like and everything. So that's the only non-scrap blanket project that I have. The rest of these are all scrap projects I started at various times. And I'm going to show you kind of in the oldest to the newest. So my sock yarn blanket you have seen before. This is a miter square blanket based on the pattern that was put out by Shelley Kang. I do each of these squares 31 stitches. And this is literally just leftover yarn from my projects. I have a better picture that I took at the beginning of the year, this that I will put in here. And also friends have given me scrap leftover sock yarn. That is all fingering weight sock yarn. Sorry, I keep bending out of frame. I'm trying to keep this stuff corralled so it doesn't turn into a big mess. The second oldest one I have is the one that I call really a scrap sock blanket project. This is one that I make out of scraps that are not even big enough for one of those miter squares. It only takes 3 grams of yarn to make one of those miter squares, but a while back I decided to even try to use the leftover scraps. So all this is it is garter stitch and strips, and I did this wider strip up till I got to whatever length I decided I wanted to stop, and then I started the narrow strip and I join it as I go. And this had not gotten worked on in a long time until recently, so I am just about to finish that second narrow strip, and then I will decide what width I want the next strip to be. But like I said, it literally is just scraps and bits of yarn. In some instances, I was going to say, I noticed one earlier where, like you can see in a couple places, well, where did it go? I noticed one, like, you know, that little bit right there was probably not more than 2 yards of yarn. I just, you know, right there, that little bit of blue was a little bit left. So that's just something I work on periodically. This is also on my WIP Go board, so my blanket WIP Go, so it will get, you know, a little bit of work on it this year. I have a striped miter blanket. So this is a larger square version of the sock blanket. It also uses the pattern by Shelley Kang. But I realized as I was making the sock blanket that I knit a lot of self-striping yarn socks, and that the smaller square on the sock blanket is not big enough to get a full repeat of most of the stripes. So I started one with bigger stripes, and I started it the first year that I was doing the Desert Vista Dye Works pair of socks a month out of Desert Vista Dye Works. So I actually have 2 pieces of this going. This one is all Desert Vista Dye Works yarns. And I've done 2 years of the Desert Vista Dye Works, and then I also have some minis of Desert Vista Dye Works that are slowly going into that. And then this one is all other dyers self-striping sock yarns, just of a variety. And eventually this will all be one blanket. I haven't decided in what way it will become one. I haven't decided. I haven't decided if it's going to be a wide blanket, wide enough for like a queen size bed that I will join side by side, or if I'm going to eventually join one part as the bottom, one part as the top. In my mind, I'm going to be able to do that by doing like squares where I pick up all the way around the square and decrease completely in, like a what was that blanket that was real popular? Barn raising blanket or something like that. Something along that lines I probably will do to join the two eventually, whenever I decide the pieces are big enough to be joined. And then a couple of years ago at Christmas, when I got an advent calendar, couldn't decide what to do with it. The Northeasterly pattern had just been released by Skananigans. And so I started one of those with an advent set, but I started it by doing fingering held double. So this blanket is a mix of mostly fingering held double, but one of these stripes, at least so far, is DK weights, which is, you know, fingering held double is about DK weight. This is just varying. There's no, I always do at least 10 ridges of every color, but exactly how many I do is just kind of random, depending on sometimes how much I like the color. Sometimes, you know, how much yarn I have, and if I'm getting close to using up all the yarn, then I'll go ahead and use it up. Other times, if I know I want to use some of that yarn in a different scrap blanket, then I will. For the most part, everything that I have as scrap, I will make at least one square in the smaller mitered square sock yarn blanket first. Unless it's self-striping. If it's self-striping, then I won't. I will use it in the striped miter. And then depending on how much of that is left, I may use some in the northeasterly. And then a lot of it goes into, excuse me, my next one, which is my granny square blanket. If you've watched before, you saw previously I had a granny square blanket that I was doing out of fingering weight, just fingering held single. And as it got bigger, I really just didn't like the fabric of it. I don't know, it just felt too floppy and loose. So I bound that off, and it's actually in the bin to be washed, but it's probably going to be given to one of my granddaughters as a doll blanket. And started a new one, basically mostly the same. That one I was doing more of a traditional granny square where you do 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets into the next chain space. And I think that was part of why it was too drapey to me. So, because there was just more spaces. And so I started again, this time with fingering weight held double. In part for the marling effect that it gives and for the heavier weight. And I am also doing still a granny square, but I am doing, I don't know if there's a name for it, but it's granny square where you're basically double crocheting into every stitch and you don't do chain spaces between the double crochets. So, so far it is, I don't know, what is that? 3.5 feet by 3.5 feet. And like I said, I'm holding the yarn double, so you get kind of a marled effect. And a lot of times, you know, one yarn will run out, and I'll just add another yarn to the yarn that still has yarn left, so it gets kind of a faded look. Not a faded look, but sometimes one yarn will be paired with more than one yarn around the blanket, if that makes any sense. Hopefully, so. Again, I have no idea what I'm going to do with all these blankets. They're just nice, mindless knitting, crochet, whatever, when that's what I'm in the mood for. And they use up scrap yarn that I can't bring myself to throw away. So, you would think that would be enough. But recently, I decided that I really wanted to knit the Helen Stewart Habitation Throw. Now this one will not be, whoops, I just dropped my skein yarn, my ball of yarn that's attached, and I'm probably not going to be able to get it without knocking the table. Sorry, I'm using my foot trying to get my ball of yarn. So this is fingering weight, just regular fingering weight, and I haven't done too much. I started this with, what did I start this with? I can't even, I did one of the Advent, I did like an Advent swap this past year, a group on Ravelry called 24 Days of Cheer. And so I have started this with the minis from that Advent, except I'm putting a square into the sock yarn blanket first, and then what's left I'm knitting into this Habitation Throw. So that's what this is. This will end up just being, I'm probably just going to make this big enough to be like a lap throw. So this one will definitely be done much sooner than these other big projects that I have. So, sorry, I just want to get that untangled so it doesn't put those needles back. So that is all the blankets. Let's show you the sweaters that are in process, except haven't been worked on in months. Again, by First Cast On. This one you have seen before. This is my Musa sweater, which is a pattern by Marie Wallen. Doing this in Jameson of Shetland Spindrift. If you go back to one of my previous episodes, you can see where my gauge was way off and I had to rip a bunch out. And I started it again. And I don't know if I've showed it since I started again. I think maybe I have. But anyway, so that's where I am. This is a big like tunic type sweater. But I haven't worked on this in months. So I'm just not in a sweater knitting mode at the moment. But it'll get done eventually because I really do love the pattern. I really do want to make it. The next one that is on the needles is Thornbush by Rami Hill. This is kind of a cardigan, short sleeve cardigan-like sweater. Again, worked on this consistently for a while. Don't know, remember if I showed it to y'all or not. I think I did. And then petered out on it as well. But I'll show you what I've got. This is knit, like, it's knit this way, except it's knit, you're knitting like from the front over the shoulder. So, and then you do some around the back and then do that. So it's knit very much on the long way. So like this right here is trying to remember what that is. I think that's a front panel. Or a, you know, I don't even remember, so I'm not going to tell you wrong. Anyway, I'm knitting this out of Hypothesis Yarns Smooth Sock in about 5 different colorways. Again, it's on my Ravelry page. I bought this yarn at the Knot House in Maryland. They also have a podcast and are great for online and phone ordering if you are needing to order some yarn from somebody. And then the last sweater that I have on the needles, I started back in the fall as part of the Ho-He Fall Knit Along, but of course, you know, I haven't finished it. It is the Earnest Cardigan by Ho-He Locatelli, and I am knitting that in Miss Babs. Sorry, I think this came off of that. I'm knitting it in Miss Babs Yummy 2-ply in the Miram colorway. And so I got that started. It is a top down. Let me flip it around so you can actually see. And so I've gotten to the sleeve split and started down the body. Has a lot of seed stitch, nice cables down the back, a cabled front placket that goes up around the neck. So again, something I really want, and I will finish eventually when I'm more in a sweater knitting mode. And that brings us to the shawls that are on the needles. As you can see, I'm not a monogamous knitter. I'm not a monogamous cross stitcher either, you'll find out. This is the Blossoming Adiantum shawl by Olga Shkaneva. I am knitting it in Apple Tree Knit Stellar Lace Gradients in the all colorway. Again, I started this last spring when I just felt like knitting some lace, actual lace weight lace. And I really haven't picked it back up. Starts with the gold. This is a gradient. I'm starting with the gold, and it goes to an orange red, then purple. I tend to prefer gradients from light to dark. For some reason, to me, I always put the light at the top and the dark at the bottom. I don't know why. That's my personal preference. And the next shawl is one I started, why is it not working really well? This was a 12 days of Christmas knit along by Boo Knits called Color Me in a worsted weight. I think it was worsted or DK. And I started it and then petered out, but I got this far. I have seen the final project online, and I like it, so I will finish this. My main color is, this is all Malabrigo Rios. My main color is Aquamarine, and I am also using Denim and Paris Nights, and then my Papa color is Hollyhock. So that's one of those the triangular shaped shawls that you start narrow and gets wider. And then the last one is, again, something I started after Christmas as kind of a knit along, but it wasn't a mystery. The Color Me was a mystery, but the full pattern's out now. Stephen West did a hybrid knit along that started, I think, Christmas Day or the 26th Christmas, something like that. And he actually released 2 shawls. One was a crescent and one was a, what is that word? Asymmetrical triangle. That's what I'm looking for. So I did cast on for the crescent, but I, again, haven't gotten very far. That's as far as I've gotten. I do love the finished shawl, though, so I will get this finished eventually. I am using Lolo Did It Dreamy Sock in Smells Like Fall is my main colorway. And then I have, pull these up, Kim Dyes Yarn in Walnut and Larkspur. These were, she does the community colorway every month that she only said that you can only order through yarn shops as a way of supporting local yarn shops. And these were the monthly colors back in, I think, August or September, I'm not sure. And then my final color is Greenwood Fiberworks Yakety Yak yarn in the Orchid Tonal color. That's, so I like that a lot, and it will get done. And then miscellaneous, I have the Joji Locatelli 3-color Cashmere Cow on the needles. I have just started the 3rd accent color. And this is in the Fiber Studio at Yarns to Die For Cashmere Silk, which is really to die for. This is so soft. In Haint Blue, Navy, and Cabernet. Which kind of gives you I sometimes make what a lot of people consider to be interesting color choices, but to me, that Cabernet, this Cabernet is just going to be one big block of solid, and that's all the Cabernet that's in it. So to me, that's going to look great, but I'm definitely a blue person, but I like that pop of something different. And then the last thing I have on the needles is my socks. So I am still knitting socks. They ride around my pocketbook all the time. I'm just not doing a pair a month. This is the pair I cast on at the beginning of the year, and I'm still working on. I actually worked on a little bit the other night, and I'm ready to turn heels now. I just haven't had, you know, the hour it takes to turn both heels to do it. So this is Nomadic Yarns Yak Sock in the colorway Christmas Past. I am taking a page out of Amy Florence's book from Stranded Knitting. She also has a podcast and sells yarn. And trying to accumulate at least 25 pairs of Christmas colorway or Christmas themed socks so that I can wear a different pair of Christmas socks every day in December. Right now I've got like 3 pairs, so it won't happen this year, but eventually. So that is all the knitting. I'm going to pause again and clear some space out and come back and show you the cross stitch. Okay, so now to cross stitch. Cross stitch is much easier to corral because I have all my current projects in this basket here that I've had forever. I don't remember where I got it. And again, I'm going to show you everything from oldest to newest, which most of it is from since about October, but there are 2 or 3 that are a little bit older. And I don't have somewhere like Ravelry to put on my cross stitch. I do have a spreadsheet. If I can figure out how to put it up on Google and share that underneath, you can look at it. But I will try to tell you a little bit more about what I'm using for each of these. I'm going to have to put, I tend to work, if possible, off of PDFs. So I don't print the patterns out at all. And I don't have pretty shots to show you of what the pattern will look like. So for a lot of these. So the ones that I don't, I will put a picture up of what the finished pattern looks like so that you can see them. So the first one is my oldest WIP. As best I can recollect, I think this is from about 2002 or 2003. I had started this for my daughter with a goal of giving it to her for her, I think I started thinking I'd give it to her for her 16th birthday, and she turned 16 in 2004. And then I thought maybe I'd give it to her for her high school graduation, which was 2006. But it's not even close to finished. So now I think I'm probably going to finish it for her daughter, who is 7 months old. So I got a little time to go. And this is something actually I've charted myself, the words, so I don't have a finished picture to show you. It is the words to Leanne Womack's song, I Hope You Dance. So I'm doing the words just in backstitch in purple. And then once that is done, I will add a border to it. And I'm going to, so I charted the words out on just graph paper. I taped a bunch of pieces of graph paper together to get a big enough piece. There's probably a better way to do this now. We didn't, back in 2002 or whenever I started this, we didn't have PC Stitch and all those other programs. So, but I'm not going to redo it at this point. And the border that I'm planning to use, I think, I'm trying to find the pretty picture of it to show you, is this one right here. Is the border I'm going to put around it. So it's all in purples and pinks and very girly colors. My daughter was a girly girl. And, you know, I'm just going to assume that her daughter's going to be as well. At this point, we don't really know because she's 7 months old. So, anyway, even if she's not as girly, the sentiment, if you haven't heard the Leanne Womack song, if you're not into country music, then Google it. It's just a very nice sentiment of, you know. And then my second oldest project is just a small little kit back in 2016 when I kind of got into cross stitch again. I picked this up just because I thought it was kind of funny. And it is a kit by, oh, I didn't tell you that the project I just showed you, I Hope You Dance, is just on 18 count Aida. And I think it's a cream Aida, not a white. And it's being done 2/1 with just DMC floss. This is, I call this Big Girl Panties. And it basically just says, put on your big girl panties and deal with it. This is, so Dance is on my WIP Go this year just for certain number of stitches being done. This is actually on my WIP Go for the year for a finish because, you know, it's pretty small, so I should be able to finish this. So, I've worked a little bit on it this year, even though its number hadn't been called. And I've, you know, been trying to put a little bit into it here and there. For some reason, it's just not my favorite thing to work on. I like the end result, but I don't enjoy working on it that much. But it's not that big, so I'll get it done. That is on the 14 count Aida that came with the kit, and what is the I guess it's DMC floss that came with the kit. The next one is one I started back in 2016 when I kind of got back in cross stitch again and started to discover how much cross stitch had changed since I was a kid. On a future episode, I will show you some older cross stitches that in my parents cleaning out their house and stuff, we have come across, and I've got to figure out what to do with some of them. But too much, not enough time today. So this one I started sometime in 2016. It is Treasure Hunt Bookshelf by Heaven and Earth Design. I'll put a picture of it in here. It is a full coverage pattern. So apparently when I decided to jump back into cross stitch in 2016, I decided to just go whole hog. I have discovered since I've gotten back into it this year that I am drawn to the big projects, which is fine. You know, it will take me a long time to finish a lot of them, so you won't see a lot of cross stitch finishes on here, but I'm just drawn to the big projects. So this is, like I said, Treasure Hunt Bookshelf by Heaven and Earth Designs. The artwork is by Amy Stewart. And it is on 25 count even weave, 1/1. I'm trying to have a big time. And as you can see, I haven't done, I can't, look, let me get that so you can see it. I haven't done a ton. I really played with a lot of different ways to do full coverage. As you can see, at one point I started trying to do on the diagonal. I've since decided that's not for me because I am more of a cross-country stitcher. So I have actually, or not cross-country, I'm more of a color completion stitcher. And well, and I'm not even sure I'm color completion. I'm more of a thread completion stitcher. So I like to put a thread of a color in and finish that whole thread. And then I will pick up another color that's near where I started. So I like to complete kind of as I go, but I like to finish each thread. So I have always done, I'm a Apple phone, iPad girl, but a Windows computer for some reason. But anyway, but I actually bought a Lenovo tablet for like $90 off of Amazon so that I could have Pattern Keeper. And since I've gotten Pattern Keeper, then on my full coverage pieces, I'm thread color completion all the way. So I work in a, maybe sometime I'll show this more detail, but I'll pick a set number of 10 by 10 grids, and I'll start in the corner with first color, and I'll work as many as I can for that thread, and then the next one I'll work as many as I thread. But if for some reason that thread goes outside of the area I've kind of identified, then I will park in the next space of the next area that I would go to. So hopefully that makes sense. And the next one is another one that I started back in 2016. And I saw this online. Many of y'all have probably seen it. I think I have a pretty picture for this one. This is Kingdom of Books. It is a kit from Russia. I think the designers like make it with your own hands or something like that. But it's, let me see if I'm showing you. So that is the kit. The kit came with 14 count Aida and DMC flosses. I think they're DMC flosses. It is done mostly, a lot of it is done 3 strands over 1 and some 2, and I think there's some back stitching and stuff. I am actually doing the background. I've seen a lot of people have picked a darker fabric so they don't have to actually stitch the background, the wood-like looking background. At the time I started this way back when, that didn't occur to me. I was still very much a Aida for the most part. That 25 count even weave for the Heaven and Earth I just showed was the only time I'd ever used anything but Aida. So I'm doing the background, and that's fine. So I had started this originally. I also used to always be a start in the center stitcher. And I had marked this one with those friction pins, which is not something I'm going to do anymore. As I have to move this further out, I'm probably going to grid with some of the easy grid, like fishing line type stuff. So hopefully this stuff will come out. So I'd started this in the center way back when and done this much. And when I've picked it back up recently, I actually started up here and I'm working down this way. My newer projects that you'll see that for the most part, I now start in the top left corner, depending on what it is. If it's got not just full coverage, but if it's got any good amount of coverage anywhere, I'll usually start in the top left corner. So that is Kingdom of Books. Let's see. Next is back, like I said, when I picked back up in 2016, I signed up to do the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery 2017 Stitch Along, which was called Happily Ever After. Again, I will have to put a picture in here of the finished product because obviously it's all out now since it was in 2017. I'm doing this on, and I ordered the kit from Frosted Pumpkin. So this is the 14 count Crystal Ada in Picture This Plus Helix that came with the kit. I don't think, no, there's not a picture. And DMC floss, 2/1. And all I did was I did a chunk of the January that came out that year. And that's as far as I've gotten. I have not worked back on this one again yet, but it is on my WIP Go board to get some work this year. And the 3 or 4 times it's on my WIP Go is to finish at least a month square. And again, that may be also something that I might give to one of my granddaughters. We'll see. We'll see how much I love it when I get done. So now we're at least to the stuff that I've started since I got back into it in October. So this is a stitch along that was started by Shallow of Cross Stitch MD. And it is, the pattern is called Winter Wonderland by Dorothy Kandzi, K-N-D-Z-I. This is available on the Silk app. You can also get a paper pattern from Historic Strickmeister. My German's a little better than my French, but not much. And again, I did this for a while and kind of petered out. You can see here, this was my first time ever stitching on linen, like actual linen. And so I'm doing this 2/1. No, I wrote down 2/1, but I don't think so. I think it's 2/2. I'm pretty sure it's 2/2. I wrote down 2/1. This is on 36 count Edinburgh Light Mocha with DMC. And you can see, because I was unsure about my figuring out the right place to start on the linen and counting stitches to make sure I left enough room and stuff, I actually started in the center and then slowly stitched my way up to the top left corner, because that's when I started realizing that people start and stop left corner, and that made a lot of sense to me. I mean, that's the way I think. So I wanted to do that, but I stitched my way up there before I started down because I didn't trust my ability to measure and either do it by measurement or counting of stitches. So that is Winter Wonderland. It is also on my WIP Go board. I think since that is in the Silk app, it counts stitches and stuff for you. And I think I put that down to do like 5% at a time, 5% each month that it comes up. So the next one is Gecko Rouge is a company that does nothing but cross stitch kits. I think they may have a few patterns where you can just buy the PDF, but for the most part, because it's licensed artwork, they sell the pattern with the kit, and they don't give you the DMC numbers and stuff so that nobody can resell the pattern and afterwards. And so I've started Across Winter Lake, which is Gecko Rouge kit, but it's artwork by Joe Grundy on 25 count Magic Guide 1/1. I do have a pretty picture for this one. Oh, it's all attached. So this is what it will look like. And of course, when I ordered it, I didn't really think about how many little light shades of like white and barely white and would be. But this is as far as I've gotten. And this actually, you can kind of see what I was talking about how I stitch now. This top part is all done, but I did like 2 or 3 of these, and then I started here and started moving down here with the threads. But I've parked this one down here because it's in this section down here. So that is, I want to say 5%. No, 1%. Sorry, that's 1%. So, but that is over 1,000 stitches. I think. I don't remember. The numbers might not be right. Anyway, that one, so my WIP Go, the numbers that were called for January and February, it just worked out that both sets of numbers were both this project and my Kingdom of Books. And my Kingdom of Books was, because I did not use a free space, I did not make my center space free space. I actually used my free space for a project. So last month I had Kingdom of Books twice and Winter Lake once. So I've done the most work recently on these two projects. Other than the next project I'm going to show you, which, so of course I love mystery knit alongs, so I had to do at least one stitch along. This one is not a mystery, so I am doing the Modern Folk Embroidery 2021 knit along, not knit along, stitch along, which is called the Fruit of Plenty, and I am really trying to stay up on this one. I have not finished February yet. Get it up. I'm doing this on 36 count Edinburgh Antique White 2/2. Excuse me. So there's January, and I have started February. This so January went to like right down, straight down here. So this part right here is February. Oh, I've gone, and that is the end of February. That's the end edge of February. So working on that, and we'll get that done by the end of this month. Work on this a little bit more later today. I really like how he uses the negative space for the design on this one. So where the stitches are around and then what's left creates the design. And you can see that over here as well too. I really like the look of that. I am doing this in DMC in the two colors that he stitched one of the models in. He suggests either you do it in two colors or you can do it in one, where instead of on the light blue where I've done and you get negative space, you actually stitch the part that on mine show up as negative space if you want to do it in a single color. But I'm a blue person. I really liked the colors that he had used. So I just went with that. The next one is a very, very small start. This was my inauguration day start. It is, and I think I have a picture of this one. It is Where Liberty Dwells by Heartstring Samplery. This is designed to be a huswife. So on this end of the pattern, it actually kind of narrows down to a point. I have actually modified the pattern to make it a rectangle, because the other end on the pattern is rectangular. So I'm just going to make it all rectangle. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. I might use it as a strip and do like a tote bag or something, or I might actually just make it a small little long pillow. So I worked on this really only on inauguration day while I was watching the inauguration. So that's all I've got is the eagle with the ribbon in his mouth, and started a little bit around the border to get to where there's more. This is all blank in here on the pattern, so I've stitched over here to get to the start of the center motifs. Got my Ruth Bader Ginsburg needle minder on here, and I am doing this in the called for Weeks Dye Works colors, except that I have replaced the parchment with DMC 3865, which is the white, which is somewhat hard to see on this, but the parchment was even closer to the fabric color and less visible. So I think that DMC is just enough contrast. You can see it. It's not going to stand out a lot, but it's going to be fine. So I have that one. And then another one that has a very, very small start, but I just had to get it started because I love this pattern. It's another one I'm going to have to put a picture of in because I only have a PDF of it. It is called One Nation by Bygone Stitches. And you could, as you can see, it's an American flag, but the names of the states in the order which they joined the Union are on the stripes, and the stars are actually kind of like flowers. But this is all I've done. It's a very, very tiny start. I have my Ruth Bader Ginsburg Descent needle miner. So that's all I've done. That's basically one thread of the navy. I am doing this on 28 count casual Picture This Plus Ale, which is the fabric the pattern called for. I just really liked, this is one of those where I've liked the look of the model on the picture so much that I ordered all the things, and I have the called for Classic Colorworks. Just kind of tangly in my bag, but and I'm doing that 2/2. And then finally, last one is by Caterpillar Cross Stitch. This is the Made to Create Stitch Along. It's a mystery stitch along, so I don't have a picture of the entire pattern. It is a 6-month stitch along that just started. First part came out January 25th. The second part will come out February 25th. And so all I have so far is the January portion. And I will tell you, for those of you cross stitchers out there who might be watching and who watch a lot of other floss tubes, I am not precious about ironing my projects to show you. So you will see wrinkles every time I show you a project, probably. So this is the January piece. You may or may not be able to tell that's an E. We think it's going to say create. This is a center start because that's how the pattern's done. It took me a minute to realize that that is a paint tube. You got a crochet hook here, colored pencil. You got a needle with thread coming off here, a camera, and that's a puzzle piece. So it's just gonna, I think it's gonna say create, but made out of a bunch of little crafty, creative bits and pieces. So it should be real cute, something to hang up in my craft room. You may or may not have noticed I'm not quite in the same position. I'm a little further away from my bins behind me. I've done a little bit of rearranging, so I have my, I don't know if you can see, my circular sock machine is back here, and it's heavy and kind of awkward to move. So hopefully it's not too distracting with all this other stuff behind me. So anyway, so that is everything I have in progress at the moment, except for what's on this electric spinning wheel back here and what's on my rigid heddle loom over there and the quilt pieces that I'm working on. So going forward, I will not go through everything I have. I just thought it may be at the beginning of my podcasting year. Obviously, it's February, so it's not the beginning of the year anymore. That I would show you everything in progress, and as we go forward, I'll just show you things I've worked on in the meantime. A little bit of pre-trial proceedings. A couple things that are probably going to be cast on soon. I've got a couple of co-workers who are either pregnant or whose wives are pregnant that I will be making baby blankets for. So you'll probably see start of at least one of those next time. I also have another Heaven and Earth Design cross stitch full coverage piece that I'm dying to start. I have it fully kitted up. I will probably start that this month, but I'm not letting myself start it until I finish my February part of the Modern Folk Embroidery stitch along. I have already done the two squares for my WIP Go for this month, so that's the only other thing that in my mind has to be done monthly before, and then I will probably be starting that Quarantine Cats, which I will post a picture of here. It's just really cute. It's just a bunch of cats getting in trouble all over the living room, but it's colors I love, and you know, I just can't wait. So anyway, calendar, not much to tell you. Carolina Fiber Fest is doing a virtual event March 12th, 13th, and 14th. We are frantically trying to get the information all together on the website, so hopefully it will go up on the website soon. It will actually be hosted on a different platform other than our website, but there will be links on our website to get to that platform. But it will be a full virtual event with the vendors will have their own little booths where they can chat with you. They can say, you know, that they will be available certain hours of the day, and they will be able to chat with you so they can show you products that you're interested in. We will also be having classes and workshops, and hopefully registration for those is going to open in the next few days, as soon as we can get that up. And those will all, of course, be virtual workshops done via Zoom with the instructors, but we have gotten instructors who are experienced working and teaching classes with Zoom, so hopefully that will be good. If you haven't taken a Zoom class yet, it's actually not bad. I mean, it depends on the class, of course. There's a lot of classes that just are not conducive to being taught via Zoom. I took a class at one of the Vogue Knitting Lives via Zoom, which was the first one I had taken, and it actually wasn't bad. You know, it's not as great as in person, you know, and you don't get to sit and chat with your friends and all that stuff as much. But as far as taking a class and learning something, they keep the class numbers a little smaller, I think, sometimes for the Zoom. And it worked well, the class that I took. So anyway, keep your eye on the Carolina Fiber Fest website for that, carolinafiberfest.org. And we hope you'll join us for that. That is about all I have. I am, you know, I say this and then I disappear for 4 months, I know. And I am entering a busy time at work, but I am going to really try to podcast at least once a calendar month. So, you know, it's probably not going to be, today's February 13th. It's probably not going to be necessarily March 13th. It might be March 5th and then not again until April 20th. But I'm going to try to at least do one in the month, each month. So this will be February, and sometime in March, hopefully I will do another one and just show you on what I've worked on in the meantime. Because my crafting time's reduced right now, you know, I'm not going to be as productive as I am some other times of the year. So that should work without each of them being too long. Looks like this one's probably going to be a little over an hour, but hopefully that's not too bad. And I guess that's it. I hope y'all will have enjoyed it and will come back to see me again. Feel free to leave me a comment below. Subscribe, like, check, notice, whatever it is. I have not previously done giveaways. I have watched a lot of floss tube in the past few months, and I know that it is typical on the floss tubes to give something away a lot of the episodes. I may explore that more. I typically just haven't done it because I don't want to solicit donations for stuff because of where I work and how I have to be because of my work. But I may explore whether or not I have some, you know, purchasing some things myself that I can maybe give away in the future. So we'll see about that. But anyway, for now, I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you'll come back to see us again, and I'll talk to you later. Bye, y'all.